My husband confessed to his mother in Korean that he got my best friend pregnant. They had no idea I understood every word. The scent of sesame oil and rice cakes filled our home, a sweet, cloying perfume meant to signify joy. It was the Baekil, the 100-day celebration for our son Liam. Family and friends milled around the living room, their laughter a brittle counterpoint to the frantic, silent screaming in my own head. I held Liam close, his tiny body a warm, solid anchor in the churning sea of my anxiety. I smiled. I nodded. I played the part of the happy new mother, the adoring wife. But every glance at my husband, Jin, felt like swallowing shards of glass. For the past month, ever since this nightmare began, I had been an actress giving the performance of a lifetime. Jin's mother, who I was forced to call glided through the party like a shark in a silk hanbok. Her eyes, small and dark, missed nothing. They rested on me for a moment too long, a flicker of something cold and calculating in their depths before her lips curved into a practiced, benevolent smile. She saw a weak, exhausted American girl, still puffy from childbirth, struggling with a language and culture she couldn't possibly comprehend. She saw a pawn, and she was right, in a way. I was weak. I was exhausted. But I was not ignorant. That was my secret. My only weapon. The party was winding down. The guests began to leave, their hands filled with small boxes of tiak as parting gifts. My Uncle Ben gave my shoulder a gentle squeeze as he passed. "You holding up, kiddo?" he murmured, his gruff voice a comfort. He was a retired detective, and his eyes had the same unsettling perception as Uma's, but his were full of warmth and concern. He didn't trust Jin, had never trusted him. I just nodded, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. Just tired. "It's been a long day." He lingered, his gaze flicking from me to Jin and who were now standing by the kitchen archway, watching us. He saw something. He always did. Finally, only the three of us and a sleeping Liam remained in the wreckage of the celebration. The air grew thick with unspoken things. Gestured for me to sit on the sofa, a regal, dismissive wave of her hand. Jin followed, his handsome face a mask of strained sincerity. This was it. I knew it was coming. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. "Clara," Jin began, his English soft and solicitous. And I need to talk to you about something important. For the family's future." He reached for my hand, but I shifted Liam in my arms, a deliberate defensive move. His hand fell away, landing awkwardly on his own knee. Said something sharp and low to him in Korean. My breath caught. I focused on a point on the wall, keeping my expression placid, slightly confused, the way they expected. "Don't be a coward, Jinho. Just tell her. She is strong in body, but her mind is weak now. It is the best time." I had spent 5 years secretly learning Korean. 5 years of early morning online classes, of watching dramas with subtitles, of practicing with language apps while Jin was at work. I had wanted to surprise them one day, to show them how committed I was to their family, to our family. I wanted to understand the jokes told at family dinners that made everyone but me laugh. I wanted to understand the stories she told about Jin's childhood. I wanted, more than anything, to belong. Now, that secret skill was my shield and my curse, forcing me to listen to the architecture of my own destruction. Jin took a deep breath, turning back to me, but his eyes were on his mother. He switched to Korean, the language a fluid, intimate barrier he believed I could never breach. It's difficult. She is very insistent now. The doctor confirmed it. It is a boy. My blood ran cold. Chloe. My best friend since we were college roommates. The maid of honor at my wedding. The godmother to my son. The one sleeping peacefully in my arms. My mind reeled, a kaleidoscope of memories fracturing into jagged pieces. Chloe, rubbing my pregnant belly, her eyes shining. Chloe, bringing me soup after Liam was born, her hand lingering on Jin's arm a second too long. Chloe, telling me I was lucky to have a man as devoted as Jin. Uma's voice was smooth, devoid of any shock. This was not new information to her. This was a strategy session. A son is a great blessing. This is a solution, not a problem. Your American wife has given you one heir, but she is fragile. Her family has a history of instability. It is good to have a backup. A stronger line. Instability. She was referring to my mother's battle with depression, a private pain I had shared with Jin in a moment of vulnerability, a confidence he had clearly passed along to be catalogued and later weaponized. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. Jin wrung his hands, the picture of a tortured man. It was a good performance. But how do I explain this to Clara? She will not understand. Her culture? They are so dramatic about these things. You will tell her that this is our way, Uma commanded, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. You will explain that it is an honor. 2 sons. Our family name is secured twice over. You will tell her Chloe was a comfort to you when she was sick with the pregnancy and emotional. You were worried for her. For the baby. You sought solace. It was a mistake of passion, but it has borne a wonderful fruit. We will support Chloe financially. She will give us the boy, and then she will go away. Clara will raise the 2 boys as brothers. It is the perfect solution. Perfect! The word echoed in the silent chamber of my heart. They had planned it all. The affair, the baby, the disposal of my best friend, the co-opting of my life. I was not a wife. I was an incubator. And apparently, a faulty one at that. My vision tunneled. The room seemed to tilt. The cheerful remnants of the party, a stray pink balloon, a pile of discarded wrapping paper mocking me with their innocence. And if she refuses? Jin whispered, the first genuine flicker of fear in his voice. Uma scoffed. Where will she go? With a new baby? No money of her own? She is dependent on you. On us. You will remind her of her past, her drinking in university. You will suggest that the stress might be making her unwell, that her hormones are making her paranoid. She will be scared. She will be confused. And in the end, she will accept. She has no choice. A wave of nausea washed over me, hot and acidic. They were going to use my past against me. The few wild years in college, the grief-fueled drinking after my father died, a period of my life I had worked so hard to move past, a recovery I was proud of. They had seen my vulnerability not as a part of my history, but as ammunition. I needed to react. I needed to give them the performance they expected. I let my face crumple. I summoned the real tears that were already burning the backs of my eyes. A sob tore from my throat. A ragged, ugly sound. I made sure it sounded like the cry of a confused, hormonal, exhausted new mother. What? I whimpered, looking from Jin to his mother, my eyes wide with feigned bewilderment. What are you saying? I don't understand. Why are you speaking Korean? You know I can't follow. Jin's face immediately softened into a mask of pity. He had his script. He reached out and stroked my hair. Shh, Clara, it's okay. We were just discussing finances, the baby's future. It's complicated. I'm sorry, we didn't mean to exclude you. He was a phenomenal liar. The ease with which he did it was more terrifying than the infidelity itself. He looked at me, his eyes full of fake concern, while the echo of his betrayal still hung in the air between us. It's all so overwhelming. I cried, burying my face in Liam's soft blanket. I let my shoulders shake. I gave them the hysteria they anticipated. I let them see the weak, fragile woman they believed me to be. Uma patted my back, a gesture that felt like a snake coiling around me. Her touch was cold, even through my sweater. See? She murmured to Jin in Korean, her voice dripping with satisfaction. She is already crumbling. It will be easy. It was at that moment that Uncle Ben walked back into the room. He had a plate of leftover rice cakes in his hand, a flimsy excuse. His sharp eyes took in the scene. Me, sobbing uncontrollably. Jin, hovering with a look of pained martyrdom. Uma, looking like a vulture who had just spotted a fresh kill. Everything all right in here? He asked, his tone deceptively casual. He didn't understand the words that had been spoken, but he understood the language of power and cruelty better than anyone I knew. She's just overwhelmed, Jin said quickly, switching back to flawless English. Postpartum hormones. It's been a big day for her. Uncle Ben's eyes narrowed. He ignored Jin completely and walked over to me. He knelt down, his creaky knees protesting, and put a large warm hand on my arm. Clara, he said, his voice a low rumble. Let's get you and the little guy to bed. You've had enough excitement for one day. He was saving me. He was giving me an escape. I nodded mutely, clutching Liam tighter. Uncle Ben gently helped me to my feet. As he guided me out of the living room, he shot a look over his shoulder at Jin and Uma. It was a look he had perfected over 30 years of interrogating criminals, a look that promised consequences. For the first time all night, I saw a flicker of unease on Uma's face. They had underestimated me, but they had also forgotten about him. And that was their second mistake. Once in the sanctuary of my bedroom, with the door securely closed, Uncle Ben turned to me. He didn't ask what happened. He just said, "I've got you, kiddo. Whatever it is, we'll handle it. You just focus on you and this little man." He gestured to Liam. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight." No arguments. The dam of my composure broke. I sank onto the bed, silent tears streaming down my face as I rocked my sleeping son. The performance was over. The war was just beginning. And as I looked at Liam's innocent face, I knew it was a war I had to win. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for him. And I would burn their perfect world to the ground to keep him safe. The next morning, I woke up feeling hollowed out, a ghost in my own home. The house was quiet. Jin had already left for work, and thankfully, had gone back to her own house. A small, cowardly part of me was relieved to be alone, to not have to wear the mask of the fragile, grieving wife. But the larger part of me was terrified. The silence was a breeding ground for the poison they had poured into my ears. Their words, their plan, their casual destruction of my life, played on a loop in my mind. Uncle Ben was in the kitchen, making coffee. The familiar, comforting smell did little to soothe the knot of ice in my stomach. He handed me a mug without a word and sat down opposite me at the table. He just waited. He knew I would talk when I was ready. "They think I don't understand Korean," I said finally, my voice a hoarse whisper. The words felt foreign, unreal. He just nodded, his expression unreadable. "I figured it was something like that. Chloe is pregnant, Uncle Ben. It's Jin's. A boy." The confession came out flat, devoid of the hysteria I had performed the night before. This was the cold, hard truth. They have a plan. Umma's plan. They think I'll just accept it. That I'll raise him alongside Liam. They're gonna pay Chloe off and she's going to give them the baby. Ben listened, his jaw tightening with every word I spoke. When I finished recounting Umma's chilling strategy to use my past against me, to paint me as mentally unstable, he slammed his fist on the table. The coffee mugs jumped. "That son of a bitch," he growled, the words a low, dangerous rumble. That manipulative, evil woman. He stood up and began to pace the kitchen, his mind already working, shifting from concerned uncle to seasoned detective. "Okay, Clara. Okay. First things first. You can't let them know you know. Not yet. Your ignorance is your only advantage right now. We need to play this smart. We need to gather evidence." "Evidence?" They confessed. "I heard them," I said, my voice rising with a note of panic. "Heard them is not enough, honey. It's your word against theirs. And they've already got a plan to discredit your word. We need proof. Hard proof. Financial records, phone logs, recordings. We need to build a fortress around you and Liam so high they can't even touch you." His decisiveness was a lifeline. It cut through the fog of my shock and grief. He was giving me a mission, a purpose beyond just surviving the next minute, the next hour. "First call," he said, pulling out his phone. "Laura Davies. Best damn divorce attorney in the state. She eats narcissists for breakfast. Second call is to a guy I know who does private investigation. We need to know everything about Chloe's situation and every dollar Jin has moved." That afternoon, while Liam napped, I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot, my phone pressed to my ear, talking to Laura Davies. Her voice was sharp, efficient, and utterly devoid of pity, which was exactly what I needed. I didn't need sympathy. I needed a weapon. "Your husband and his mother sound like a matched set of vipers," she said after I had recounted the entire story, my voice breaking only once. "And your uncle is right. Your fluency in Korean is a tactical nuke, but we only get to detonate it once. Until then, you are the picture of a loving, slightly overwhelmed, and completely unsuspecting wife." She laid out a plan. A checklist of survival. 1. Open a new bank account at a different bank. Start moving any money you can access into it. 2. Get a new phone. A pay-as-you-go burner. Use it for all communication with me and your uncle. 3. Start a journal. Write down everything you remember. Dates, times, conversations, strange behaviors, every little detail. It's your memory, your timeline. 4. This is the most important one, Clara. Is your state a one-party consent state for recordings? I told her it was. Good, she said, a hint of predatory satisfaction in her voice. Buy a voice-activated recorder. Several of them. Keep your phone recording whenever you are in the same room as them. We need them to hang themselves with their own words, in their own language. The next few weeks were a blur of clandestine activity, a life lived in the shadows of my own home. By day, I was the dutiful wife. I made Jin's favorite meals. I smiled when he kissed me goodbye in the morning, a kiss that felt like a brand of his betrayal on my skin. I listened politely on the phone while gave me unsolicited, condescending advice about how to raise my own son. All the while, my new burner phone was tucked in my pocket, recording every word. Digital recorders were hidden in the living room, the kitchen, the nursery. My house became a web, and I was the spider, waiting patiently. The evidence I gathered was sickeningly plentiful. I recorded conversations between Jin and his mother where they discussed the legal strategy they would use if I became difficult. They talked about hiring a notoriously aggressive lawyer known for destroying mothers in custody battles. They refined their narrative of my postpartum instability. I recorded Jin on the phone with Chloe. His voice, when he spoke to her, was different. It was the voice he used to use with me, tender, loving, full of promises. He promised her a new life, a comfortable life. Once the unpleasantness with me was sorted out, I heard her voice, thin and reedy, asking for reassurance that she would be taken care of. There was no love there. It was a transaction. My best friend had sold her soul, and our friendship, for financial security. Uncle Ben's investigator delivered a dossier that turned my stomach. Jin had opened a separate bank account 6 months ago, 3 months before Liam was born. He had been systematically funneling money from our joint business, a successful tech consultancy I had helped him build, into this secret account. There were wire transfers to an account in Chloe's name. There were receipts from luxury hotels, expensive restaurants, jewelry stores. The affair wasn't a recent mistake of passion, as had framed it. It was a long, calculated deception. He had been building a new life with her while I was carrying his child. Every new piece of evidence was another brick in the fortress Laura Davies had talked about. But it was also another blow to my heart. The man I had loved, the life I had built, it was all a lie. A meticulously constructed facade designed to benefit him. My grief was a physical thing, a heavy weight in my chest that made it hard to breathe. There were nights I would stand over Liam's crib, watching him sleep, and just weep silently, the tears a hot, bitter release for the rage and sorrow I had to keep locked away during the day. My sponsor, a woman named Sarah, whom I had met years ago, became another pillar of my support network. I confessed everything to her in a hushed phone call. I told her how they planned to use my recovery against me. "Let them try," she said, her voice fierce. "Your recovery isn't a weakness, Clara. It's your superpower. It's proof that you can walk through hell and come out the other side. You've done it before, and you'll do it again." Her words reminded me that my past was not a source of shame, but a testament to my strength. The breaking point, the moment I knew I had to act, came on a Tuesday afternoon. Jin came home early from work. He found me in the nursery, feeding Liam. He had a gift bag in his hand. "For you," he said, his smile so warm, so convincing, that for a split second, the old reality, the happy one, shimmered in front of my eyes. I opened the bag. Inside was a ridiculously expensive designer handbag, a bag I had admired in a magazine months ago. It was a guilt gift, a down payment on my silence. "It's beautiful, Jin. Thank you," I said, my voice even. He sat on the edge of the rocking chair watching me. "Clara," he said, his voice dropping to that serious, sincere tone he used for important conversations. "I have something I need to tell you. It's difficult, and I need you to listen with an open heart." My entire body went rigid. This was it. He was going to deliver the speech his mother had coached him on. My phone was in my pocket, recording. He told me about Chloe. He spun the tale they had concocted. It was a mistake. I was so sick during my pregnancy. He was so worried. He sought comfort in the wrong place. He was ashamed. But now there was a consequence. A child. A son. He framed it as a blessing in disguise, a way to make our family even stronger. He watched my face, waiting for the tears, the confusion, the hysteria. I gave him nothing. I just sat there, my expression unreadable, and continued to feed our son. The silence unnerved him. "Say something, Clara. Please," he begged. I looked at him, truly looked at him. For the first time in weeks, I saw not the man I married, but a stranger. A weak, cruel stranger hiding behind a handsome face and a carefully crafted script. "I need some time to think," I said, my voice colder than I had ever heard it. The next morning, while he was in the shower, I packed a bag for myself and Liam. I took my evidence journal, the burner phone, the digital recorders, and my laptop. I walked out of that house, the house that was supposed to be our forever home, and I didn't look back. An hour later, from the safety of Uncle Ben's house, I sent Jin a single text message. I have retained a lawyer. You will be served with divorce papers tomorrow. The retaliation was immediate and brutal, just as Laura had predicted. Jin's first move was to freeze our joint bank accounts, cutting me off from all our shared money. It was a classic power play, designed to make me feel helpless and desperate. But thanks to Laura's advice, I had my own account, a small but vital cushion that Uncle Ben had helped me fund. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was freedom. The next phase of the attack was character assassination, and Uma was its chief architect. She began a systematic campaign to poison our social circle. She called my friends, our friends, her voice thick with fake tears and concern. She told them I was suffering from a severe case of postpartum psychosis. She said I had become delusional, paranoid, that I was making wild, horrible accusations against her innocent son. She's not well, I heard her say on a recording from the bugged landline at my old house, which I had managed to keep active. She was talking to a mutual friend, a woman I had considered a close confidant. The doctors are very worried. She needs help, but she's refusing it. She's run away with the baby. We're so scared for them. The lies were insidious and effective. Friends who had been texting me daily suddenly went silent. A few sent tentative, pitying messages. Clara, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Please let us know if you need to talk to a professional. They didn't believe me. They believed the narrative of the hysterical, unstable new mother. The isolation was a cold, creeping dread. It was exactly what they wanted. They wanted to cut me off from my support system, to make me feel utterly alone. Then came the legal assault. Jin's lawyer, a man whose slicked back hair and smug grin made my skin crawl, filed an emergency motion for sole custody of Liam. The motion was a masterpiece of fiction. It painted me as an unfit mother, citing my history of substance abuse and mental instability. It twisted my past struggles into a current, dangerous pathology. It claimed I was a flight risk and a danger to my own child. The hearing was set for the following week. I remember reading the court filing in Laura Davies's office, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the papers. Every vulnerability I had ever shared with Jin was laid bare, distorted, and used as a weapon. My college drinking was described as chronic alcoholism. My bout of anxiety after my father's death was a pattern of severe mental illness. It was a portrait of a monster, and I didn't recognize myself. This is what they do, Laura said, her voice grim but steady. They attack. They try to make you the problem. Don't let it get to you. It's just noise. We have the truth. But it was hard to see it as just noise when the world I knew was crumbling around me. The pressure was immense. Jin began calling my burner phone, leaving long, pleading voicemails. One minute he was begging for forgiveness, telling me he loved me, that we could work this out. The next he was threatening me, telling me I would end up with nothing, that he would make sure I never saw Liam again. Uma tried a different tactic. Financial coercion wrapped in a veneer of family concern. She had one of Jin's uncles, a man I had always liked, call me. He was the designated peacemaker. Clara, he said, his voice heavy with false sincerity. This has all gone too far. It's tearing the family apart. Uma is heartbroken. She wants to make this right. She has made an offer, a very generous one. She is willing to set up a trust fund for you and Liam, enough for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life. All you have to do is drop this messy divorce, stop these terrible accusations, and agree to a quiet separation. And what about the other baby? I asked, my voice flat. He hesitated. The family will take care of that. It doesn't have to be your concern. It was a bribe, a handsome price for my silence and my dignity. They thought they could buy me off, that my principles had a price tag. Tell Uma, I said, my voice shaking with a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins, to take her generous offer and shove it. I'll see her in court. The rock-bottom crisis came a few days before the custody hearing. The stress had been mounting, a relentless, crushing weight. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I would wake up in the middle of the night, gasping for air, my heart pounding with terror. The constant fear of losing Liam was a physical ache. One evening, after putting Liam to bed, I was sitting in Uncle Ben's kitchen, staring at the wall. The house was quiet. Ben was out for the evening. And the old, familiar craving hit me like a physical blow. The whisper of the addiction I had fought so hard to conquer. Just one drink, it said. One drink to numb the pain. One drink to quiet the fear. Who would know? I found myself standing in front of his liquor cabinet. My hand was outstretched, trembling, hovering over a bottle of whiskey. It would be so easy. So easy to give in, to let the warm oblivion wash over me. And in that moment, I understood how they could win. If I took that drink, their lies would become the truth. I would become the unstable alcoholic they claimed I was. I would lose my son. I would lose myself. My reflection in the glass of the cabinet door stared back at me, a pale, haunted woman with dark circles under her eyes. But behind the fear, I saw a flicker of something else, a spark of defiance. I thought of my son sleeping peacefully in the other room. I thought of Sarah's words. Your recovery is your superpower. I slammed the cabinet door shut. I slid down to the floor, my back against the wood, and I sobbed. I cried for the life I had lost, for the friend who had betrayed me, for the man I thought I knew. But these were not tears of surrender. They were tears of grief and rage. When the storm passed, I picked up my phone. I didn't call my lawyer. I called my sponsor. I almost did it, Sarah, I whispered, my voice raw. I almost gave them what they wanted. But you didn't, she said, her voice a firm, steady anchor. You stood at the edge of the cliff, you looked down, and you chose to walk away. That's not weakness, Clara. That's the fiercest strength there is. Now breathe. Just breathe. You've got this. We talked for over an hour. She didn't offer solutions or legal advice. She just listened. She reminded me of how far I had come, of the tools I had to fight this battle not just in the courtroom, but inside my own mind. By the time I hung up the phone, the craving had passed. The despair had receded. In its place was a cold, hard resolve. They had thrown everything they had at me. They had tried to break me, and they had failed. The hearing was in 2 days. I was ready. The days leading up to the custody hearing were a slow, agonizing crawl through the procedural muck of the legal system. Laura Davies's office became my second home, a war room wallpapered with documents and strategy charts. The process was a frustrating education in how the wheels of justice turn with infuriating slowness. We filed motions, responded to Jin's motions, and waded through the discovery process, which was a battle in itself. Jin's legal team tried to stonewall us at every turn. They produced heavily redacted financial statements. They claimed phone records were irrelevant. They objected to every request we made. It was a strategy of attrition, designed to exhaust my resources and my will to fight. But Laura was relentless. She filed motions to compel, threatened sanctions, and buried them in so much paperwork that they were forced to comply. They're hiding something, she said, tapping a thick file of Jin's incomplete business records. People don't fight this hard to hide things unless there's fire under all that smoke. The breakthrough, the evidentiary turning point, came from 2 different sources. The first was Uncle Ben's private investigator, a quiet, unassuming man named Frank. He had been digging into Chloe's life. He discovered that she had quit her job 2 months ago and had put a down payment on an expensive condo, all in cash. It was far beyond her means. But the most critical piece of information he found was her obstetrician's name. Laura immediately subpoenaed Chloe's medical records. We weren't sure what we were looking for, but any information was valuable. When the records arrived, Laura and I huddled over them in her office. And there it was. According to the ultrasound reports and the doctor's notes, Chloe's conception date was a full month earlier than Jin had claimed in his tearful confession to me. Look at this, Laura said, her finger tracing a line on the page. Jin told you the affair happened when you were in your last trimester, when you were sick, and he was lonely. But this means the affair started long before that. It means Chloe was already pregnant when she was at your baby shower, telling you how happy she was for you. The timeline was a cold, hard repudiation of their entire narrative. This wasn't a mistake of passion. It was a long-term, premeditated plan. They hadn't just decided to create a backup heir on a whim. They had likely been trying for months. It was a small detail, but it was a crack in the foundation of their lies. The second, and most powerful, discovery came from my own surveillance. I had continued to record everything. I had hours upon hours of their conversations, most of it mundane, but some of it pure gold. The crown jewel was a phone call between Jin and Uma. recorded just 2 days after I had left. They thought they were speaking privately, securely. They were wrong. I sat in my room at Uncle Ben's house, headphones on, listening to the recording with a certified translator, a woman Laura had hired to transcribe and authenticate the calls. Even though I understood every word, we needed an official record for the court. On the recording, Jin was panicking. She left. She took Liam and she left. She said she hired a lawyer. What do we do? Umma's voice was chillingly calm, the voice of a seasoned general directing a battle. Calm yourself, Jinho. This is a tantrum. She is emotional. She has no money, no power. She will come crawling back. We will proceed with the plan. Our lawyer will file for custody. We will use her history. We will say she is unstable. But she'll fight it. What if she tells them what we said? Jin whined. And then Umma delivered the line that would seal their fate. She can tell them whatever she wants. Who will they believe? A hysterical woman with a history of problems, or a concerned husband and a grieving grandmother? It is her word against ours. In court, you will stick to the story. You were lonely. It was a one-time mistake. You are deeply sorry. You will cry. If you can. We will both testify that we have been worried about her mental state for months. We will say she has been hearing things, imagining conspiracies. We will be calm, rational, and concerned. The judge will see the truth. The translator paused the recording and looked at me, her eyes wide. My God, she whispered. She's coaching him on how to commit perjury. Yes, I said, a grim smile touching my lips for the first time in weeks. Yes, she is. This recording was the tactical nuke Laura had spoken of. It was undeniable proof of their conspiracy, of their intent to lie to the court and manipulate the justice system. It corroborated everything I claimed. Armed with this new evidence, Laura and I had to make a critical strategic decision. We could present the recording and the medical records as part of our initial filing for the custody hearing, giving them time to prepare a counter-argument, to spin more lies. Or, we could hold it back. We could let them walk into the courtroom, let them build their scaffold of lies, and then, at the moment of maximum impact, we could pull the pin and detonate it all. We save it for the hearing, Laura decided, her eyes gleaming with a warrior's light. We let them perjure themselves on the stand. We let them dig their own graves. Then we hand them the shovels. The strategy was risky. It meant I would have to endure their attacks in open court. I would have to sit there and listen to them assassinate my character, to paint me as a crazy, unfit mother. But the potential payoff was enormous. It wasn't just about winning custody anymore. It was about exposing them for who they truly were. It was about total vindication. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, rocking Liam, his small, warm body a comfort against the cold dread coiling in my stomach. I was about to walk into a room and fight for my child, for my sanity, for my future. I was terrified. But as I looked down at my son's face, a fierce, protective love washed over me, eclipsing the fear. They had mistaken my kindness for weakness, my vulnerability for fragility. Tomorrow, they would learn how wrong they were. They had started a war with a mother. They had no idea how brutally it would end for them. The courtroom was a sterile, intimidating space, all polished wood and somber flags. It smelled of old paper and anxiety. I sat beside Laura at our table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to stop them from shaking. Jin and Umma were at the opposite table with their lawyer. Jin wouldn't meet my eyes. He stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched. Umma, however, looked directly at me. There was no animosity in her gaze, only a cool, dismissive pity, as if I were a misbehaving child who was about to be disciplined. Her arrogance was breathtaking. The hearing began. Jin's lawyer, Mr. Sloan, went first. He was as slick and venomous as I had imagined. He called Jin to the stand. Jin, dressed in a somber suit, played his part perfectly. He spoke in a low, pained voice. He told the judge that he loved me, but that he had been deeply concerned about my mental health since Liam's birth. She became different, he said, dabbing at his eyes with a handkerchief. Paranoid. Accusatory. She would have these wild mood swings. One minute she was fine, the next she was weeping or screaming about things that made no sense. He recounted a fabricated story about finding me talking to myself, another about me forgetting to feed Liam. Each lie was a physical blow. I focused on a spot on the wall behind the judge's head, breathing slowly, just as my therapist had taught me. Ground yourself, Clara. Stay in the present. This is just noise. Then Sloane brought up my past. Mr. Park, is it true that your wife has a history of alcohol abuse? I wouldn't call it abuse, Jin said, the picture of magnanimity. She had a difficult time in college. I've always tried to be supportive. But yes, I worried that the stress of motherhood might trigger a relapse. Laura was silent, letting him spin his web. She made only a few notes on her legal pad. She was giving him all the rope he needed. Next, Uma took the stand. She was even more compelling than Jin. She projected an aura of maternal grief, a grandmother terrified for her grandson's safety. She spoke of my erratic behavior, my deep sadness that seemed to curdle into anger. She told the judge, her voice trembling with emotion, that I had accused her son of a monstrous affair and that I had threatened to disappear with the baby. All we want is for Clara to get the help she needs, she concluded, looking at the judge with tear-filled eyes, and for our precious Liam to be safe. It was a masterful performance. I could feel the judge's sympathy shifting towards them. I could see the doubt in her eyes when she looked at me. From the outside, theirs was the more believable story. The concerned family versus the unstable new mother. Then it was Laura's turn. Her cross-examination was surgical. She was calm, methodical. She started with Jin. Mr. Park, she began, you testified that your affair with Chloe Stevens was a one-time mistake, is that correct? Yes, Jin said firmly. A terrible, regrettable mistake. And you testified that this mistake occurred in the last month of your wife's pregnancy? A time when you were feeling lonely and disconnected? Yes, he repeated, his voice full of practiced shame. Laura walked over to our table and picked up a file. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence the certified medical records of Chloe Stevens. She handed a copy to Sloane and the judge. Mr. Park, would you be surprised to learn that according to these records, Miss Stevens's date of conception was a full month before you claim your one-time mistake occurred? A flicker of panic in Jin's eyes. I don't know anything about that. Doctors can be wrong. So, your testimony is that these official medical records are incorrect, but your memory is accurate? Laura pressed. Yes, he said, his voice less certain now. Laura moved on, chipping away at his credibility piece by piece. She presented the bank statements from his secret account, the wire transfers to Chloe, the receipts from hotels. With each document, Jin's story began to unravel. He stammered, contradicted himself, and grew visibly flustered. When Uma took the stand for cross-examination, she was more formidable. She deflected Laura's questions with poise and condescension. Mrs. Park, Laura asked, you testified that you were worried about Clara's mental state. Did you ever advise your son on how to handle her instability? I advised my son to be patient and loving, Uma said coolly, as any mother would. Did you ever advise him on what to say in court? Did you, for instance, ever coach him to lie under oath? Uma laughed, a short, sharp, dismissive sound. That is an absurd and offensive accusation. This was the moment. Laura walked back to our table. Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence. It is a recording of a phone call between Mr. Park and Mrs. Park, which took place 2 days after my client left the marital home. We have a certified transcript and translation, and the translator is present in court today to attest to its accuracy. Sloane shot to his feet. Objection. Illegal recording. Invasion of privacy. It's a one-party consent state, Counselor, the judge said, her eyes now fixed on Laura with keen interest. The evidence is admissible. Proceed, Miss Davies. A technician set up the audio equipment. Laura pressed play. The courtroom was silent, save for the sound of Jin's panicked voice filling the space. She left, Uma. She took Liam and she left. I watched their faces as their own words condemned them. Jin went pale, a sickly, greenish white. He looked like he was going to be sick. Uma's mask of serene composure finally shattered. Her eyes widened, her mouth fell open slightly. For the first time, she looked not like a queen, but like a cornered animal. The recording continued. The judge listened intently as Uma's calm, cold voice instructed her son on how to commit perjury, how to manipulate the court, how to lie about my mental state. We will be calm, rational, and concerned. The judge will see the truth. The irony was thick enough to choke on. When the recording ended, a profound silence descended on the courtroom. The judge slowly took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. She looked at Jin and Uma, her expression one of utter contempt. Mr. Park, Mrs. Park, she said, her voice dangerously quiet. In all my years on the bench, I have rarely witnessed such a calculated, malicious, and frankly, idiotic attempt to defraud this court. She turned her gaze to me. For the first time, I felt seen. The judge didn't see a hysterical woman. She saw a survivor. The verdict was swift and decisive. I was granted sole legal and physical custody of Liam. Jin was granted supervised visitation twice a month, conditional on him completing a parenting course and an anger management program. The marital assets were to be divided, but the funds in Jin's secret account were awarded to me in their entirety as punitive damages for his financial fraud. The judge also announced she was referring the matter of their testimony to the district attorney's office for a full investigation into perjury. As the judge's words washed over me, I didn't feel the elation I had expected. I just felt a deep, bone-weary relief. The fight was over. Liam was safe. We were free. I walked out of the courtroom with Laura and Uncle Ben on either side of me. I didn't look back at the wreckage of the family I had tried so hard to be a part of. The war was won, but the scars would remain. It was a victory, but a bittersweet one. Justice had been served, but my innocence, my trust in the world, was a casualty of the conflict, lost forever on that courtroom floor. The aftermath of the trial was not an ending, but a new, quieter, and more complicated beginning. The verdict provided a legal boundary, a wall between my new life and the ruins of my old one, but the emotional shrapnel was embedded deep. In the weeks that followed, I learned that a courtroom victory doesn't magically heal trauma. It simply gives you the space to begin the long, arduous work of healing yourself. My therapy sessions became my sanctuary. I finally had the freedom to unpack the full weight of the betrayal without the fear of my words being used against me. I grappled with the imperfect nature of the justice that had been served. Jin and Uma were facing a perjury investigation, but the wheels of that particular justice system grind even slower than family court. There was a high chance they would get away with a slap on the wrist. It's not fair. I told my therapist, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. They tried to destroy me. They tried to take my son, and they'll probably just pay a fine. How is that justice? Justice and the law are not always the same thing, she replied gently. The law gave you what you needed most, your safety and your son's. The justice you're looking for now has to come from within. It comes from knowing you fought back, you told the truth, and you won. It comes from rebuilding your life on your own terms. Rebuilding became my mantra. The first practical step was to sever the final ties to my old life. I sold the house, that beautiful home that had become a stage for so much pain. I let go of the furniture, the photos, the ghosts. I took only my personal belongings and Liam's things. Watching the moving truck pull away from that curb felt like a final, necessary amputation. With the money from the settlement and the house sale, I bought a small, modest condo in a quiet neighborhood near Uncle Ben. It was nothing like the grand house Jin and I had shared, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every picture on the wall, was chosen by me. It was a space that held no bad memories, a blank canvas on which Liam and I could paint a new future. The practicalities of single motherhood were daunting, but also empowering. I learned how to assemble a crib by myself, how to budget my new finances, how to soothe a crying baby at 3 a.m. without a partner to hand him off to. Each small accomplishment was a reclamation of my own strength and competence, a direct refutation of the helpless, fragile woman they had tried to make me believe I was. Establishing permanent boundaries was the most critical part of this new beginning. I secured a restraining order against Uma. Her campaign of harassment had continued even after the verdict, with vitriolic emails and calls from blocked numbers. The court order put a legal stop to it. It was a piece of paper, but it felt like a shield. My final communication with Jin was through our lawyers. He sent a request to discuss the supervised visitation schedule. I instructed Laura to inform him that all communication regarding Liam would be conducted through a court-mandated parenting app. There would be no phone calls, no texts, no emails, just a cold, impersonal digital log. I was severing not just the marriage, but the illusion of any lingering connection. He was now just a biological fact in my son's life. Not a partner, not a friend, not even a memory I cared to keep. The most difficult boundary to draw was a mental one. Chloe gave birth to her son a few months after the trial. The news reached me through the grapevine, and it hit me with a surprising force. My son had a half-brother in the world, an innocent child born from so much ugliness and deceit. For a long time, I didn't know how to feel about it. But in therapy, I came to a place of resigned acceptance. That child was not my enemy. His existence was a part of my reality, but it did not have to be a part of my life. I could acknowledge the fact without letting it consume me. Slowly, painstakingly, a new normal began to take shape. I started working part-time from home as a freelance writer, a career I had put on hold for Jin. My friendships solidified into a smaller, more fiercely loyal circle. The friends who had doubted me had faded away, and I let them go without regret. The ones who remained, the ones who had stood by me, who had brought me groceries, who had watched Liam so I could attend lawyer meetings, became my chosen family. 1 year after the day I walked out of my old life, I was sitting on the floor of my new living room. Liam, now a babbling, crawling toddler, was gleefully pulling all the books off the bottom shelf of the bookcase. The late afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It was a quiet, ordinary moment. There was no high drama, no lingering threat. Just peace. I looked around my small, sun-drenched home. It was filled with the sounds of my son's laughter, the scent of his baby shampoo, the comforting clutter of his toys. My scars were still there. They were part of my story, a map of where I had been. Some nights, the ghosts of the past still whispered at the edges of my sleep, but they were only whispers now, not screams. I had survived. More than that, I had built a life that was truly my own, forged in fire and tempered by resilience. I looked at my son, his face bright with innocent joy, and I felt a profound sense of hope. Our future was unwritten, and for the first time in a long time, I was the one holding the pen.